I want to take a moment to look back at one of the weirder celebrity scandals of the 90s. And that's really saying something because a lot of weird shit happened in that decade. I'm referring to the time that charming English actor Hugh Grant solicited a prostitute on Sunset Boulevard. When this happened in 1995, it received endless coverage to the point that I think everyone just kind of got sick of hearing about it. But it's been 27 years since then, so it feels like a good time to revisit the situation. By 1995, Hugh Grant was on the rise to becoming a huge star. He had just starred in 4 Weddings and a Funeral, which was the highest-grossing British film ever. He was also in a relationship with the model Elizabeth Hurley. The tabloids loved him because of his boyish good looks and his coy but charming way of delivering lines like he's being prodded by low-voltage electricity.
I really feel, in short, to recap in a slightly clearer version...
But you know what they say. The tabloids only love you until you pay a prostitute to suck your dick. And that's exactly what Hugh Grant did on the early morning of June 27, 1995. While the rest of Los Angeles was soundly asleep, and while Elizabeth Hurley was in England, Hugh Grant drove his BMW down the Sunset Strip and picked up a woman by the name of Divine Brown. And no, that's not her real name. That would be Estella Thompson. But considering Hugh Grant's middle name is Mungo, I doubt he was too interested in either of them whipping out their IDs. The lovers then drove to a nearby residential street, where they got down to business. Unfortunately, their little morning delight was interrupted by the police. Apparently, they noticed the car because Hugh Grant was repeatedly pressing the brake pedal with his foot, causing the lights to flash many times. That's how you know he was getting some good stuff right there. It turned out Hugh Grant had reportedly paid Divine Brown $60 for a blowjob, which translates to $117 today. You're telling me that a blowjob would cost $117 in this economy? Thanks, Biden. Grant and Brown were both arrested for the romp. The tabloids immediately jumped all over this, roasting old Mungo hard for his actions. He was publicly lambasted for cheating on his incredibly attractive model girlfriend with a Hollywood prostitute. But come on. We all know we're no better. I think every guy can at least understand the temptation to get a little frisky on a lonely night. You can admit it, fellas, there are literally no women watching this channel. Anyways, the coverage of this whole fiasco was absolutely driven into the ground. Hugh Grant responded to the scandal by saying, "Last night I did something completely insane. I have hurt people I love and embarrassed people I work with. For both things, I am more sorry than I can ever possibly say." Sorry you all had to hear that impression. He was ordered to pay a $1,000 fine and attend an AIDS education program, which makes this among the most expensive blowjobs ever. Divine Brown, on the other hand, was sentenced to 180 days in prison for violating an earlier probation. But don't feel too bad for her, because she did manage to make a reported $1.6 million from the publicity. She went on to star in an X-rated docudrama directed by Ron Jeremy titled Sunset and Divine: The British Experience. Eventually, coverage of the event had gone on for so long that everyone wanted to stop hearing about it. So let's take a moment to look at what's happened in the years since. Divine Brown used her newfound riches to move into a house in Beverly Hills. In 2007, she was quoted saying, "Everything worked out for the better. It helped me turn it into something positive. I was blessed that it could get me out of that lifestyle." However, in October of 2022, she was arrested again and hit with charges of battery, child cruelty, and drug possession. She is awaiting sentencing and could face up to 30 years in prison. She's gonna have to give Colin Firth a rim job to get out of this one. Hugh Grant's career recovered from the event remarkably well, as he is obviously still a very successful actor. His relationship with Elizabeth Hurley actually lasted 5 more years before they peacefully called it quits, which shows you how much you can get away with if you look like Hugh Grant. In 2003, he was asked about the impact of the whole thing, to which he said, "I think, ultimately, the pros and cons about evened out, actually. I remember saying to my agent the night of the event, I was very drunk, 'Is this bad for my career?' He was a very Hollywood guy, for whom everything is fantastic, and even he had to say, 'Oh, it's not great. But on the other hand, there were odd things coming out of it which were quite positive, in a way. So I have to say, in all honesty, I think it was kind of neutral.'" I suppose the positive thing he's referring to is Divine Brown quitting prostitution, in which case you could say that Hugh Grant went through all of this to take one woman off the street. He's a philanthropist at heart. He also has the simplest signature I've ever seen. I couldn't naturally fit that into the rest of the video, but I wanted to bring it up. And so ends the tale of Hugh Grant and Divine Brown, 2 people with only one encounter that deeply impacted both of their lives. Like ships passing in the night, if the ships got into a crash. The only thing left for them to do is have a reunion on live television, but we're at least 5 years away from that. Now please consider subscribing, or I'll end up on Sunset Boulevard with much lower rates than $60.